Welcome back to DTF Film Sessions, episode number 39. I'm Max Dean. You can find me on Twitter at TheMaxDean, and I'm back with Tre'Shon Diaz, also of Defiant Takes Football at TRE3SHON on Twitter. And we are going to be talking about second-round pick Jonathan Mingo, the wide receiver from Ole Miss, now with Carolina Panthers. So this is, again, just a few more players that we're looking over post-draft, a couple of high picks. And I'm intrigued by him because the Panthers really needed wide receiver help, right? They traded away their number one guy in the trade to the Bears, and they need someone who's going to come in and take snaps pretty much right away. And so I was curious to see why they wanted to take this player and almost most likely insert him right into the lineup. So, I have a couple of thoughts on him after getting to watch him now, and I'm curious to see what you think about him too. So first and foremost, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good. This is a really interesting pick. I'll be covering Atlanta for Defiant Takes this year, so I'll see him twice this season. So I'm also pretty intrigued to see, what was it that they feel that they're gonna get from him and why they like this player, where they ended up taking him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the first thing to mention are the measurables, right? He's 6'2", 220. He's a
Big guy.
big player. He ran a 4.46 at the combine, so he has good speed. They don't make 6'2", 220, 4.4 guys, on every street corner, right? So just that alone is something to, take a second look at. But when I watched what he did well at Ole Miss, particularly well, it fits right in with Frank Reich. They want to run the ball, right? They're like, this guy is a day one plus blocker at the wide receiver position. Is that why you draft a receiver in the second round? Not necessarily. I mean, not according to everybody, but certainly they valued that. He's also a deep threat with the speed and size. And we're going to kind of see all that. But, I think in terms of expecting him to win and get open consistently, that's probably not the most realistic thing right now. So I'm curious to see what, the offense ultimately ends up looking like in Carolina. And they have a good offensive line. They're probably going to run the ball quite a bit. But, they're making a statement. I certainly believe that. So let's jump into the tape here and see what we see from Mingo. All right, so we have 5 plays here. Only the first couple are going to be proper routes. You're going to kind of see what he does well, what he doesn't do as well in those, and then we'll look at some of his blocking plays and see why it's such a plus. All right. All right, so first of all, right off the snap, let's make a little space here. You see the burst and explosion. This is an interesting release where he gives that little tap right there. I don't know if that really is necessary. I'm not sure what he's selling there when his foot's still behind him. It's a little bit of a false step, but it's a unique false step, that's for sure. Throws his foot in the ground and cuts inside. I'm not sure really any of that's necessary, like any of the extra is necessary, because he just beats with burst right here. This is just his natural talent. And then it's speed and strength to stack, right?
Yeah. Yeah, on that release, honestly, I kind of feel like, you mentioned maybe that false step when he goes to plant, to cut inside. I almost feel like, he's almost a little overextended there out of his body. I feel like there's just a little bit of wasted movement. And I think that's kind of something that, that is one of the knocks, is that he is not a refined route runner. So I think you're right in that I don't know if everything he's doing there is necessary, or maybe a better way to even say would be effective in terms of helping him get open.
Right. I think that he's just a better athlete in this moment. And again, great strength to fight through, some hand contact there, good speed to just win that way. And then he does, I mean, it's stacking to some degree. but he's just got the physical ability to get through all of it. And then really nice extension there and
Yeah.
tracking on the deep ball. So, if he's going to consistently win at the next level, I don't know. But when he is open, like when he does get a step deep, this is what he can do for you down the field. So I think he does have some potential as a big play guy early. I don't think it's going to happen on a game-to-game basis, but he'll certainly have some highlights, right? We can see the catch from another angle here as well.
Yeah, just really strong hands there.
Mm-hmm. Like that's not an easy catch at
No,
all
not
at
at
that
all.
speed. All right, so next play, he is going to be targeted on this play, but he does not make the reception. And again, we'll see maybe not the cleanest release.
Yeah.
So it ends up in a pick, and it was a bad decision. The quarterback's clearly locked in on him. But right here, this is a very long step outside, right? Like this you're making a move toward the outside, but it's not really like a good sell job, right? Like you don't look like this when you're running a deep route, like with where your foot is hitting with your heel first that far out in front of you. That is not conducive to inertia carrying you down the field. So you're kind of selling yourself that you're not actually doing that. Plus it's a little bit too short on the receiver and he's cutting inside a little bit too early. So he really never gives himself a chance here. Like he doesn't, the DB has inside leverage and he doesn't really do nearly enough to give him the perception that he is taking it outside or deep here. So when that happens, then there's really just no chance. It definitely should not have been thrown. But if for a 6'2", 220 guy, you want him to be able to win on routes like this, and you got to do a better job.
Yeah, over the middle is where he's going to have to win at the next level, especially because of that size. And it just kind of, again, it just feels like wasted movement, not a clear route running plan. Like you mentioned, he really needs to get the defender to open his hips, so that he's able to actually cut inside. And he ends up just running into him. Like you mentioned on that longer breakdown at the top of the route hit there, where his heel gets out in front of him. When that happens, you have less control over your cuts. Things aren't sharp, and you can see there it's rounded out, and he doesn't really have control of his body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and right here, there's a lot of unnecessary motion. Like he has to fully coil, or I shouldn't say he has to, but he fully coils his body before getting off the line. So he certainly has the ability to be explosive in his movements and very sudden, but we just don't see him doing that here yet. And we can just watch it once from the other angle here. And I'm not sure how much of a chance he has, even to fight through contact. Like the DB's all over him,
Yeah, it's a great play.
All right. So now we're going to look at some of the stuff that he does a little bit better. And they line him up all over the place. In this case, he's kind of like an H-back here as they're down in the red zone. And his blocking is really quite exceptional. He clearly takes pride in it. He does a great job in it. He has really good understanding of closing space between the guy that he's supposed to block and himself. Because a lot of times, you see a guy coming up on you to block and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to, run away from you. Like if we don't have, a short amount of space between us, then I can just kind of avoid you. A lot of receivers have that issue, closing that space, and he does not. You'll also see him getting in there and getting pretty physical with some bigger players, not just cornerbacks here.
Yeah, really good drive.
You know, he doesn't carry him away from the play necessarily. Like, you know, he doesn't carry him outside, but in terms of generating space, that is a nice job.
Yeah.
Driving the legs, hands inside.
That's a fantastic rep from a receiver, and you know that's what I think he's really going to need to be able to do for Carolina, because like we've both mentioned, running the ball is a very big part of what's going to be their offensive game plan this year.
All right, I want to see who he does this against as well. This is number 13 here. Who was number 13 for LSU this past year? Is that an outside linebacker or is that a DB? I'm honestly not sure. Regardless, very effective. Okay, now we're going to see him blocking from a different point, and he's going to be, this is where he's going to have some more space to close. So comes off the line, and he gets he basically sets himself up to where he's blocking for this kind of screen, and he does a great job of shuffling to the side, staying square, staying parallel to the line of scrimmage with his shoulders, taking on and absorbing contact, right? Like, he's not really moving forward at this point. All the momentum is with the defender, and he just catches him right there and continues to move with him, and again starts to generate momentum in his direction.
Yeah, no,
And
very good job.
And I think if it wasn't for getting tripped up right there, right, like he's fully affected the play in the way that he is meant to.
Yeah, does a good job of staying patient. Once the ball's snapped, waits for the defender. He gets to his spot first where he needs to be, where the ball's going to be cut. Does a good job of creating that wall and giving the runner a lane. And then, yeah, like you said right at the end there, I think, I can't tell who that is, but if they're able to wall him off, then that's an even bigger gain than it already is, but still a first down.
All right, so on this play here, he is going to act like he's running a route, and then he's going to get into the block. And this is a subtlety and a specificity that we don't necessarily see with his releases and with some of the routes. And so why I wanted to show it is because it shows a willingness and a detail-oriented nature for him, because he really sells out on this route before he gets into the block. And it's like, you know, a lot of guys are just not willing to do that. They're just not interested in it, right? If they're going to block, they're going to kind of casually do it. It might not be super effective. They're trying to save a little energy maybe for the game. But, you know, this is one of those things where it's like, if you do this and the run has to get bounced out to your side, you have created a lot more space without actually having to get hands on a guy when you do this effectively. And it's a sign to me that he is able to learn the details necessary, and there's a lot of intent behind his movement. So I suspect that he's going to develop substantially as a route runner when I see something as specific as this. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen right away, but this is something I just wanted to include because it's a sign of how intentional he is as a player in certain things, and then you can expect that to translate, I think. So it's this right here, right? So he steps up, he gets square because he knows what he wants to do, but it's then this foot fire right here that keeps the DB's eyes on him, and especially because you see the DB's looking down at his feet too, so he recognizes that, gives him the foot fire, and then releases outside, even though this is a run play. And he's never really running around here. He just steps right into it and puts hands on it. But it's just a little thing that I noticed that he did that I was a fan of as a player, right?
Yeah,
Just
and I think teams like the Panthers who are in a rebuilding stage are looking for guys that can be foundational pieces and do those little things, not have the ego, be able to block and sacrifice and do what needs to be done for the better of the team. And qualities like that, being a plus blocker, those are things that might be able to, or I shouldn't say might, those are things that did raise his stock, I think, more than some people had expected, and landed him in the second round. So I think that's a really good thing to call out, because that's definitely what teams look for when they're evaluating receivers. And in a down class, by what many considered this year, that can really make or break your value. And for him, he's reaping the rewards from that. So
yeah, for sure. I think there's no guarantee for any player ever, right? So just
yeah.
seeing the fact that he works hard and has, technical refinement in the run game doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to work for him in the passing game. But it definitely is a plus for me, right? Because
Hmm.
I see players, um, you know, and BJ Ojulari is a great example for me where, you know, all the traits are there. The traits are phenomenal, right? And maybe he's not refined as a pass rusher or a run defender, but it's like I want to see at least some aspects of his game that are very intentional, like and very aware of what's happening, because that gives me the sign that he's a very hard worker, and this is just happens to be the thing that he's perhaps not mastered, but has made significant strides in development in,
Mm.
because then I trust that is more likely to happen in other facets of the game. With BJ Ojulari, I didn't see that. I saw a lot of very like sloppy play, a lot of reliance on um, just on traits and just speed and explosiveness and bend, and just putting himself out of position very regularly. And when I look at a player like Mingo, I see all those traits, but I don't see a player who's just relying on that. I see a player who's very invested in his development. And I'm not trying to say anything specifically about BJ Ojulari. I'm not calling him out. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. I'm just saying that you know something I didn't see with him, I do see with Mingo, and that's something that I like when I don't get to have these actual face-to-face conversations with prospects who I know are going to be, a fair amount of projection, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to do it for Jonathan Mingo today. We will be back with Felix Anudike Uzoma. I think tomorrow you might be getting a double dose because we were supposed to do Uzoma last week, and we did not get time to get him done. So I think we're having them both today. And then next week, we're going to be doing Luke Musgrave next week. So next Friday, keep an eye out
Nice.
for the new Packers tight end. All right, guys, thanks for joining. Find me on Twitter at TheMaxDean. You can find Tre'Shon at TRE3SHON. Find Defiant Takes Football at Defiant Takes on all social media outlets. Of course, check us out live every Monday and Thursday. And then you can find our breakdowns on a weekly basis. We have almost 50 prospects from the 2023 draft now up.
Mm.
And then you can find our written work over at defianttakesfootball.com. All right. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you all very soon.